Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again to review a movie that Safi has actually watched. Okay, she actually watched this movie last night, and she just did not know what to say because the movie was so confusing and so bad that she just didn't have really anything to say about the movie, which is pretty weird. But it's really on par with her type of reviewing. So, and it's indicative of the quality of the film too. So, I'm just going to forward a couple of comments. She said the movie was very fast. It was very confusing and bad. And she said that nothing really made sense. She didn't know what was going on. And of course, the movie we're talking about is called My Soul to Take, which is ironic because the movie wasn't made with any heart and soul at all. This is a very soulless, typical 2010 horror movie. And I will say it is a quote-unquote horror movie, because usually with modern horror movies, I say, this isn't a horror movie. But this is. It definitely was a typical horror film. It just was really bad, and it was very 2010. It was very... Ugh. And so Safi actually said that... She said that she was surprised by the ending, which is funny because usually she figures out the mysteries before they are solved in films. And so I guess she couldn't figure this one out. And she said that the movie, in terms of food, she would rate it a mystery burger. And she said that you just have this burger patty on a plate and you eat it, and it's like, okay, where did this burger come from? Like, which fast food place is this from? And she said that, you couldn't really tell anything about the burger, but it was so gross and so dull and flat and ugh. And then right at the end, when you're done eating it, someone tells you that apparently the burger is from McDonald's. And you're like, what? Really? So that's what she has to say about this movie. Basically, it's a big mystery burger. And I would have to disagree. I would say that a mystery burger would be like a movie where you just where it just runs by and you feel like you didn't watch anything. This movie had a lot of stuff that happened, but it didn't really mean much because it was bad. So, this is the second to last movie Wes Craven ever made, which is unfortunate because you could definitely tell what he was trying to do with this movie. You could tell that he wanted to make... Because somebody recommended this movie to me, by the way. Somebody made a recommendation and said, this is a movie where it's so bad, it's good, and it's funny. But something that I didn't like was that Wes Craven, it seemed like he ripped off all of his other movies in this one. Like he had so many elements from his previous films, like the main character, the killer. He was very much like Freddy Krueger meets Ghostface. And he even had a voice that was exactly like Ghostface meets Freddy Krueger. And so that was something that I didn't like, was that throughout the entire movie, he just had all these other references to his films. And it's like, see, this is why I did not think that Scream was good for horror movies. Because when Scream was made, the message that people took was not to make a good horror movie where you don't know what's going to happen, it's scary, and it surprises you. The message that people took was that people want references, they want teens, they want very teen vibes, like with jokes and meta humor. They didn't take the right message from Scream. And that's a common occurrence, is that A very good horror movie is made, and then the studios do not take the right message from it. And then what they do is they spend the next 10 plus years replicating the same movie, but doing it in really bad ways to where it doesn't even resemble anything that the first movie ever was. You know, they did the same thing like with the Hills Have Eyes remake, where you had this one remake that was very good. And it was very good because it improved on the original film. I mean, I like the original Hills Have Eyes, I guess, but the remake is so much better it's not even funny. And the remake is so much bloodier and so much more brutal, and it's just such a better movie. And what did the studios do after that? They made the Hills Have Eyes 2 remake, which sucked. It was even worse than the original Hills Have Eyes 2, which I didn't even know was possible. And it was horrible, and they made all these other horrible remakes where they all just followed the same formula. Take an old movie, an older movie, and then put teens in it and make it very teeny, very high school oriented, PG-13. You know, that's what's funny, is that I never really thought of the people in Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street as high school people. I always thought of them as like adults, because it was a very mature story. They never really treated the story like this is a teenage film. This is a teenage story. So this movie, My Soul to Take, one of the very queer things about the movie, as I said, is the many, many references. Ugh. Like, you not like references like they're saying, hey, remember Scream? Hey, remember Nightmare on Elm Street? But it's pretty close to that. The movie starts off with a sequence very similar to the opening of Nightbreed, where you have this guy, and he doesn't know that he's been a killer, and then he finds out that, like, he's being framed or something, and he doesn't know, and it's a psychiatrist, but in this one, he really is the killer. And it was funny because it was the guy who played Chilton in Brian Full of Himself's Hannibal. And the opening sequence was so hilarious that I could not stop laughing. Like, the opening sequence you had, he's like, oh no, I killed people. And he finds like a knife. And then after that, he gets on the phone. Oh, psychiatrist, I think I killed someone. And then the psychiatrist is like, okay, get your family out. And then he's like, okay. And then it turns out, like, I guess he killed his wife and the police are already there or something. And, like, just everything happens so fast that you can't process it. You don't, it's happening so fast that it's just unbelievable. And so you have all these people that get killed. The police come in, the guy attacks his children, I guess, and then the police shoot him. He's on the floor, and he's like, and it's like, okay, it's going to be like Scream, where he's not dead. And then what do you know? He shoots the cop on the floor, and then another cop shoots him, and then he shoots another cop, and then another cop shoots him. And then they put him in an ambulance, and then he wakes up and starts killing the people in the ambulance. And then they shoot him again. And it's just so hilarious. Like, just a bunch of the shit just happens in like 2 seconds, and it's just so funny, and it's so random. And it feels like this is the ending of another movie that maybe was even worse than this. But the thing is that right after that, so basically he might have died or he might have walked away and survived, but they can't find his body. And so I guess he's just gone forever. It's a mystery. And then they flash forward to the current day, 2010, and they show, of course, a bunch of teenagers wearing their quote-unquote cliche teenage clothing, and they're all partying, and they're drinking, and it's like, this is how you can tell that you're going to watch a bad horror movie. this is how bad horror movies start, is that you see a scene in the past where some, like, just okay stuff happens. I mean, let's be honest. The movie would have been much better if it had starred Chilton from Hannibal than if it had starred these teenagers. So that's what I'm saying, is that the movie that we started on was better than the rest of the movie. And right after that, you see a flash forward to teenagers, and just teenage, doing very stereotypical teenage things. And the rest of the movie is just, I mean, if I tried to describe the whole thing, it would take like hours, because it's just so all over the place. But then you have, let's see, what else? You have the fact that the killer talks to them on the phone, and so he's like Ghostface in that way. You have the fact that they have like these model houses, and that's like Nightmare on Elm Street parts 3 and 4. And then you have the element of the main guy, who, I will say, the main guy in this movie, he is the brother in Bates Motel, and it was really fun seeing him in a movie that wasn't Bates Motel, because I've been so used to thinking of him as the Bates Motel brother, where he was the best character in that entire show. And so he was awesome. In this movie, he's pretty bad, though. But he's okay. And one of the funny things that they did that I actually liked, one of the few things that I liked, is that, you know how I said that all the teenagers are wearing typical teenage clothing? Well, the brother from Bates Motel, named Bug, they gave him like a sweater, like this ugly old person green sweater, or like a cardigan type of thing. He looks like a librarian, and it's just so hilarious seeing this teenager who looks like an old person walking around, and it's like he definitely did that on purpose. And that's one of the few things that I liked, is that, like, it would have been so funny if he had done that for like the whole cast of these main teenagers, but he didn't. He only did it for the one. And I really liked that. I thought that was fun. It's also very unique. I don't really think there's any other film where there's a teenager walking around dressed like a 70-year-old librarian. So, and then what else? I mean, well, also the fact that he's wearing like a green sweater, it's sort of like to try to hint that he might be the killer, because it's like something Freddy Krueger could wear, green sweater. You're just missing the red. And then they also have this whole scene, probably one of the better scenes in the movie, because it's very contained. And it's very just, you have two people in a room talking. And the main guy and his friend, and keep in mind, none of this is going to make sense. So don't even try to make sense of it, because just pay attention to what I'm saying and just don't think about the whole movie, okay? Because as I said, the movie goes by so fast that you can't process anything that happens. But there's this scene where the main guy locks himself in this room with his best friend, and then he locks the windows too. And you think this is exactly like the scene in Nightmare on Elm Street 2, where the main guy locks himself in the room with the friend, and then he kills him as Freddy Krueger. It was almost exactly like that. But it was like this thing where, like, they were trying to figure out, like, who was the killer. And I kind of liked that scene, honestly. I thought that was, like, one of the better scenes of the movie. There were a lot of great ideas in this movie, but they just didn't come together as a full script. And so that was another thing that felt like it was taken from something else. And then you have the fact that the killer, he's wearing like this black feathery cloak with like this white ghost type of mask, and it's very much like Scream. And he uses knives. He's obsessed with using knives, and there's this part where he's like, I picked up the biggest knife I could find in the kitchen. And, and, uh, and so there's lots of stuff like that. And then the very end of the movie, too. The very last shot is a direct copy of the ending shot of Scream, where you have the police out in front of the house, and then the camera's pulling up, and it's like just showing the whole house with all the police vehicles and the news vans, and that was very much like Scream. And I really didn't like that, though. I thought that that was very weird. And somebody else pointed this out as a possibility. They said that the movie was possibly like a test run for Scream 4. And I would have to agree. I think that this movie was a movie that he made without taking anything seriously, except for the fact that he's practicing for Scream 4. And the only thing that I think he thought about was that, at least these actors, they'll get to be in something, they'll get to be in a movie, and maybe they'll get better roles after this. And I think that that's good because the brother in this movie, the brother from Bates Motel, he got to be in Bates Motel 3 years later. And so he might not have even been able to be in Bates Motel if he hadn't have been in this movie. And so I think that that's great. And so basically, the majority of the movie is very similar to Scream and Nightmare on Elm Street, where you have this killer and he wants revenge for the people who quote-unquote betrayed him, like Freddy Krueger wants revenge on the parents. But the difference is that it's actually a copy of an X-Files episode, because I've been watching X-Files along with Safi, and there's an episode in season 9 where it's about these people who get skinned alive by a killer, and it turns out that the killer was skinned alive in like the 1800s, and he was a miner. And they were all miners together working at this mine. Like they weren't miners like teenagers. They were miners. And he was getting revenge with all the people who killed him, and he's killing them when they're reincarnated. And so it's the same type of story. You have this reincarnation thing where all the souls... Because what happened was, I guess, all the people who got killed that night who betrayed him, all their souls entered the bodies of these kids who were born that same night. And so, yeah, pretty weird, pretty confusing. I'm getting a headache just talking about it. But you have like teenagers getting killed off. They get taunted by a voice on the phone, like Scream. And the whole movie is just very stereotypical and cliched. And I would say, though, that the movie was extremely entertaining. It was extremely funny. It was crazy. It was insane. It was just so bad that it really was good. Like, it was ridiculous. Oh, there's the garbage. See, that's you guys see like how perfect that is, because this movie is garbage. But it's good garbage. Like, this movie, I gotta be honest, this is one of the better movies I've seen this year, because it's so much fun without it's fun in like a really good bad way. And it's cool that, like, even though Wes Craven, this is one of his worst movies, if not his worst movie, even though it's bad, at least he could still make a great movie even though it's bad. Like, at least he could still make something that was really entertaining, even though it's really bad at the same time. Like, I think that that's something that's fun. I did not like Scream 4. I did not like Hills Have Eyes 2, though, so it doesn't always work. And so, other things to talk about with this movie. Some of the funnier scenes, I should say. There's a lot of really weird things that just happen out of nowhere, and they don't really get explained or talked about very much. Like, there's this one thing that happens where the best friend, who turns out to be the killer, he gets abused by his stepfather, and he's walking into school with the main guy, and he lifts up his shirt casually. He just yanks up his shirt like it's so casual to do that, and he shows this big, like, cigar burn on his chest, and he says, "My stepfather did that." And it's like a very weird thing that it's like this, like, he casually lifts up his shirt and shows that. Very weird. And so that was something that I thought was weird. And then there was this weird thing where, like, they had like this a fang zone or something where the main guy's sister goes to the bathroom with the main love interest, I guess, and she kind of extracts the information out about how she feels about the main character, and she disguises it as, "Oh, I need help with my homework," or something like that. I don't know. It was very weird. Just so many weird things that happened in this movie that you couldn't help but love it. And it was, this movie was bizarre. And then there was a sequence where the guy and his best friend walk out into the hallway, and they start mirroring each other. And it's like, it's so weird. Like, this is like something you'd see in a high school acting class. Like, this isn't something that you should see in like a big expensive studio movie. And there was a lot of stuff like that where there were these really... And so I really think the best part of the movie was the scene between the main guy and his sister. And so he's at home, and it's one thing I really didn't like about the movie was that they really sucked the color out of it. It's one of those modern movies that they started doing this trend of sucking the color out of the films, and he's at home with his sister, and his sister is very mad at him, but it's like his birthday, and so it's this movie is so weird. It's his birthday, and his mom is very mad at him because it's his birthday, and he's home late. He's home at like 10 o'clock at night, and she gets out this cake, and they blow out the candles. They don't even eat the cake. He just blows out the candles, and then she like gets mad at him, and then his sister's like, "I got a present for you," and he opens up the present, and it's like a little tiny rocking horse, like, you know, that wooden rocking horse that Elf made in the movie Elf. Like, it was like that, but like taking it seriously, like, "This is my present for you." and then he runs upstairs, or there's this weird thing where like the mom says, don't take that, go upstairs and go to your room right now." And it's like, why is she angry at him, and why is she telling him to not take his present? And he just takes his present anyway. And then, if that's not bad enough, then the mom slaps the daughter, and she gets mad at her. And then the daughter yells back, and she goes upstairs. And that's where the funniest sequence of the whole film happens. The sister sees the brother in the hallway, and she punches him right in the face. And he's like, oh shit, oh, what the fuck? And then she runs into her room and slams the door. And he knocks on the door, and he's like, "Hey, I never did anything wrong to you. Why do you hate me?" And then she opens up the door, and she starts beating the living shit out of him in the hallway. Like, she just beats the shit out of him like it's a Mortal Kombat movie. And she's like, bam, 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 bam. And he's like on the floor. He's got blood coming out of his face. It's bizarre. And then she goes back into her room, and she says, "You were born. That's what's wrong with you." And so then the sequence is not over because, as I said, so many things happen in this movie in such a fast fashion that, oh no, we can't end the sequence there. It's already pretty bad. We gotta make it even worse. No, after that, he gets up and he grabs the rocking horse and he takes it into her room and he destroys it right in front of her, and then he goes back into his room. Like, what the fuck? Just what the hell? Like, that's the whole movie, though. It just, the whole movie, everything happens like that, and it's just so bad, but so good at the same time. Really, really good. I really laughed at the entire film. I would highly recommend this film. It is so bad, but it's so good. Like, I don't know how high am I going to put this. Like, it is above Sound of Music. It is above, like, Unforgiven, all these classic films, because it was so entertaining. Like, even if something's bad, if it's entertaining, then who cares? So and also, something that unexpected happens is that the love interest, she gets killed in the forest. That was very unexpected because she's a girl, she's blonde, and usually in these horror films, what always happens? You have a cast of teenage characters, and whichever girl is the most boring out of those teenagers, she's gonna survive. And no, that did not happen in this movie. The only girl who survives in this movie is the sister. The annoying bitch one. She is the only one who survives out of all the girls. And then, of course, the main guy, the brother, he survives too. And so I kind of like that. I think that that's cool. I was not expecting for the love interest to get killed, because they teased and teased that they would have a romance, and that it was that typical thing where you have a popular girl and she's with a jock, but she really likes a normal guy, and it's like, will they, won't they? But no, she gets killed. The ending of the movie all takes place in the house, very, very similar to Scream, where you have a bunch of confusing events where people literally run around confronting each other about possibly being the killer, and just like accusing each other like it's the Me Too movement in a house, like just going around accusing each other of assaults that never happened. Like that's what the whole last 30 minutes of the movie is, just people running around this house. Oh, that person's already dead. Oh, they couldn't have been the killer, but maybe you were. And then, oh, let's go to another room. Oh, look, that person could be the killer. Oh, what about my mom? Oh, she's dead? Oh, shit. Oh, no, there's a policeman here. Oh, he's dead now, too. And it was so... Oh, this movie. And basically what's revealed is that the dad's dead. And one of the things that I really felt like Wes Craven could have done is that he could have had the teenagers go and try to find the body of the dad, because they said that either this demon would possess a new person or he would keep on possessing the father if he's still alive. So you'd think that people would try to find the dad's body to confirm that he's dead or alive, to know that, like, okay, none of us are possessed. But no, they don't do that because they want to keep up the mystery. And so I do think that that could have been a great sequence, maybe at the very end, instead of just keeping it at the house and making it like Scream Million Thousand. They could have gone into the forest to look for the dad, and they could have found like an underground tomb where like the dad was living for years or something, possessed by the demon, and then he died or something. And it could have been very creepy and a great ending setting to the film, and it could have been really cool. But instead of that, it just all keeps on taking place in the house. And it turns out that the best friend, this little weak, wimpy guy, he's the killer. Oh, of course. All the people in the movie were just so obvious that they could be the killer that it really wasn't surprising that one or the other was the true killer. And another thing that I liked, though, was there was a little part in the movie where the main guy, his best friend, is trying to convince him that he's schizophrenic and that maybe he's the one who did it, he's mentally ill. And then he says, he outsmarts the killer. And he says, well, actually, this, and this. And, I'm not as dumb as you think I am. I'm not mentally ill. I thought that was pretty cool. As I said, lots of great ideas in the film. But the main plot was that, you know what a condor is? It's like a vulture. There's also a hilarious scene where they do a school project on condors. And, of course, that scene was ripping off the scene in Nightmare on Elm Street where you had the guy in front of the class and he was creepily reading Romeo and Juliet or whatever while Nancy's having the dream. And so that whole sequence was another thing that they just took from Nightmare on Elm Street, that he took from his own movies. But what happens is that he gets possessed and he starts really getting into the speech, and he's like, this is the condor, and it is responsible for this, and it is like this and that. And then the guy with the condor costume on starts flying around the classroom, and he terrorizes the jock, and he pukes all over him. And then I think he pukes again, or he has, like, explosive projectile diarrhea, and it's really like, this movie was insane. But it turns out that the condor has been possessing the best friend the whole time. And so then the best friend offers to blame it all on the black guy, Jerome. And actually, I did think Jerome was a pretty good actor in the film. It's too bad that he didn't have a better character, but I did think that he was a pretty good actor. There were some good actors in the movie. Like, you had Frank Grillo playing the detective, and you had the guy who played Schweikert in Better Call Saul, and then all the other things he's been in. He was the principal. And so a lot of good actors in the movie just doing this terrible, terrible movie. And so the best friend offers the main guy to blame it all on the black guy, and he says no. And then he kills him, he stabs him, and then I guess the demon is defeated or something. Like, it's really weird. It's like, okay, I guess everything is over now. I guess the movie's over. Whatever. That's fine. Let's go watch Scream 4 now. Not. Something that I really thought was weird, though, about the ending is that at the beginning of the movie, as I said, it is impossible to kill the guy. Like, they shoot him 1,000,000 times. They stab him. Nothing can hurt him. Like, he's possessed and he's just going to keep on living. Nothing can hurt him because they just keep on killing him over and over and over again. But then at the end of the movie, all it takes is just one stab to kill the best friend. And I really thought that was weak. I thought that, the whole movie was weak. The whole movie was bad. I mean, I haven't even talked about everything. I mean, this movie, it should be studied. It should be put in a museum. It should be, like, dissected for just every single little thing is bad and why. But in a good way. In a very, very good way. So, in terms of what I would rate it, that is the tough part, because if I give it something really good, then that would be suggesting that the movie is really good. And then if I give it something really bad, then that's saying it's really bad. And, how could you have a food that's so bad that it's good? The only thing that I can think of is TGI Fridays. Now, I don't like TGI Fridays at all, but you could get some food there that's really, really good in a bad way. Because the food at TGI Fridays, it has like 3,000 calories per thing. Like the appetizers, the entrees, the desserts, you're eating like an entire day's worth of powerlifters' food if you eat at TGI Fridays. And so, obviously, when you go to TGI Fridays, what do you get? You get potato skins. That's a lot of calories. And then you get drinks. That's even more, thousands and thousands of calories. And then you get the entree. You get like a giant fucking burger with chili and cheese and they have one burger where you can get mozzarella sticks on the burger. And then for dessert, my favorite dessert at TGI Fridays is they have a brownie and it has like caramel sauce and it has like these nuts and it's very, very good. And it's very hot and there's crunchy, there's different textures. And so that's another 5,000 calories. And so, but altogether, it's a pretty good meal if you want to like be a pig and just eat and just feel like you've eaten the entire world. Then I guess you'll like this. And so that's what this movie is to me. Some more bad things though, more reasons to not like the movie. Typical signs of modern horror. Because there were a couple of signs of modern horror. One of the things was that there wasn't any nudity in the whole film, and of course, that's something that Wes Craven doesn't really have in most of his films, except for like Last House on the Left, and that's a sign of a bad horror movie because it's so contrived that it's like, you know, why not? Like every horror movie has that, and why doesn't this movie have it? Because it's special. Because, oh, we don't do things like that because this is a better horror movie than others. Like, yeah, fuck off. Another thing about the movie is that it has some jump scares that are really bad. Those were also really funny. Like the opening, the guy's own wife jump scares him, I think. And it's pretty bad. So you have a lot of jump scares at certain points. There were only like 3 or 4 or something, but still, 3 or 4 jump scares is 3 or 4 too many. One of the only good things about the movie, though, was that it had a lot of blood. Like, when people got killed, there was blood. That's something that you can tell if it's a modern horror movie, is that there will hardly be any blood, if any. You know, that's a big red flag, talking about horror movies and, oh, there's no blood. But wait a second. If someone gets stabbed in real life, blood comes out of where they get stabbed, right? Oh, well, not in modern horror movies because we're trying to advertise this towards teenagers and we want teenagers to like this. You know, that's the typical excuse that we hear. And so overall, this movie was very, very good in a good, bad way. And actually, I would say that this movie, it is a prime example of something that should not be good, and it is good regardless. Because I enjoyed this movie much more than like pretty much any other bad movie we've seen so far. Like, this was so much fun, and it was very 2010. You know, what it reminds me of is, you know, back when you used to go to Blockbuster and you used to look at the covers and just be like, ooh, that cover looks good. I'm going to get that movie. And then you get it and you watch it and you regret it the entire week. You know, that's what this movie is like. It's like a movie you get at Blockbuster and you regret it seconds later. So, please like, comment, and subscribe. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.